Hi guys, hope everyone's well and welcome back to the education section. In this video I'm going to touch on muscle lengths. So jumping into the episode, in terms of why I'm creating an episode on muscle lengths, if we understand everything around muscle lengths and how it affects training, we can make better and more educated gym decisions which can ultimately impact our progress. So muscle lengths, basically the length of your muscle, is going to influence the order of your exercises, how you execute your exercises, your exercise selection, and also your tempo. So basically how you structure your sessions, how you perform each exercise, and which ones you select, as well as the control you use during each exercise. And arguably we can make more progress due to being able to make more educated and more on paper effective gym decisions. So what are muscle lengths? What do I mean by the term muscle lengths? So muscles change their length as you move joints. So as, let's say, if you're watching this and not just listen to it while you're driving, etc. If you're looking at like the camera in the bottom right, if my arm goes from straight to bent, my bicep is going from fully lengthened to fully shortened. So as our joints move, we will change the length of a muscle. So our muscles can go from fully shortened, which is like here in the video, when my arm is fully bent, my bicep is fully shortened, mid-range, and then their lengthened position. And bear in mind, one might be shortening while another might be lengthening. And what I mean by this is, if let's say you bend and straighten your leg, you've got a muscle in the front and the back of your leg. So if you're bending one, then you are going to be straightening one while also contracting the other. You'll be lengthening one while shortening the other. And the reason why we want to know that about this and why it's important is a concept called the length tension relationship. So it basically refers to the relationship between the length and also the tension of a muscle. And what this basically means is the force our muscles can generate is dependent on the muscle length. So whatever position your muscle is in will basically influence how much strength it has, how much weight it can lift in that position. So yeah, our strength of our muscles basically change depending on what position we're in, if that makes sense. So we are strongest in the middle position. So the middle position, again, we'll just take my bicep for an example. The middle position would be this position here, where it's not stretched, it's not shortened, it's in the middle of the rep. And the second strongest is it's lengthened, so when your arm's straight. The weakest is the shortened, when your arm's fully bent. And this refers to our muscle strength profile, which just basically involves what your muscle's capable of doing. And our strength profile, or muscle strength, our muscle capabilities, is made up of active and passive tissues. It's made up of things that are active, so our muscle mass, and also passive things that we aren't contracting. So as our muscles fatigue, our ability to shorten a muscle diminishes. So our ability to basically fully bend our arm and squeeze our bicep, we will lose strength in this position. Whereas in the lengthened position, we won't lose as much strength as we fatigue, as we get tired. So as you can see in this graph, this basically gives you an example of a muscle's capabilities during its different lengths. So if you look at it here, you'll see there's like two lines. There's like active and then there's passive. So basically, when we are performing a movement, we will have passive tension and also active tension. So active tension, the strength of the actual muscle. So you'll see when the muscle is short, so at the start here, when the muscle is short, it is weak. It then gets stronger. In the mid position, as you can see with the cursor, it is its strongest. And then it gets weaker again as you go into the shortest position. And then, in fact, so in the shortened position, weak, and the middle, it is strongest. It gets a bit weaker in the lengthened position, but then see when it's at the very lengthened position, like very stretched position, it will actually get stronger. And the reason being is because of passive tension as well. So passive tension is basically like tendons and ligaments that will come into play and will influence like the strength of a muscle. So the reason being is that will contribute towards how much strength you have in that lengthened position. So not only will our muscle be helping us get out of that lengthened position, but also our tendons and ligaments, which is why the graph doesn't go just up then down. It goes up, down, then up again, because our tendons and ligaments are helping in that range, if that makes sense. So yeah, this can differ depending on what muscle you're training, so bear that in mind. So here's an example. I'm just going to run through a few for different exercises just so you get the concept. So remember what I said, our muscles are strongest in the middle position, second strongest in the lengthened position, and then weakest in the shortened position. So basically, in this position here, this is the lengthened on the very left. So in this position, our muscle is second strongest. In the middle here, that's our muscle in the mid position, where we are strongest, and then at the top is the shortened position, where we are weakest. So as for example here, when we're performing a squat, so it depends what muscle we're actually looking at. Obviously, you could say she could get lowered down during the squat. I'm not going to critique our former of that, but during the squat, this position here on the very left, her quads are in their lengthened position, their fairly stretched position. This position here, her quads are in the middle position. This position here on the right, her quads are in their shortened position. So bear in mind she's not right down, so this isn't quite the lengthened position you could say, but I'm just giving you a rough idea. It doesn't have to be exact for this case. And what's interesting is if we look at it, if we look at a different muscle, our hamstring, it's the opposite. Our hamstring is fully shortened, or in its shortened position. Here, her hamstring's in its mid position, and here, her hamstring is lengthened. It's not fully lengthened, just due to the position she's in, but it's more lengthened than the start anyway. I'm just giving you a rough grasp of it. Same with the glutes. If we go back and do it again, glutes are stretched here, their middle position, shortened position here. Next up, so if we take our remaining deadlift for example, or a deadlift, any deadlift variation, so when performing it, our hamstrings are shortened in this position, but they're lengthened in the position on the right. And if we look at our rectors, so our back muscles, the muscles that run down our spine, what's happening there to their length? Nothing. They're staying the same. So our muscle length is remaining unchanged. So if you look here, the thing that's changing is our glutes and hamstrings really. Nothing else is really moving a lot. So yeah, our glutes are going from shortened to stretched. And as for the dumbbell press here, so our chest is going from shortened to lengthened, and obviously in the middle of the rep it would be in its mid position, where it's strongest, if that makes sense. So yeah, and also if we look at, let's say, our back's doing the opposite. It's going from stretched here to shortened at the bottom. Our triceps, shortened to lengthened. And if we look at, next example, a bent over row, so this is basically the opposite. Our back's going from lengthened on the left to shortened on the right, and obviously in between is where we'll be the strongest. And not much else is changing here. You could say your chest, or your biceps actually, sorry, your bicep is going from lengthened to shortened. So that gives us a rough idea of where we'll be strongest in each part of a movement, which is quite interesting and quite valuable to know. So yeah, quick recap when I'm going over it. So I've told you where our muscles stronger and weaker, so now we know kinda, you might be getting a rough idea of what exercises are on paper good and bad, if that makes sense. For example, this dumbbell press. This dumbbell press, like I said, our chest is weak when it's shortened. So our joints are stacked here. We've not got much tension on our chest due to our arm being straight. Think about how much time you could maintain just with your arm straight with the dumbbell here compared to the dumbbell here with your hand all the way out to your side. Due to your joints being stacked, it's lighter. So you could say this would make the dumbbell press a good exercise because it is heavier where we're stronger, lighter where we're weaker at the top. So that's kind of jumping ahead. I'm going to cover things similar in the next episode, but basically, considering we're weakest in the shortened position, it doesn't make sense to overload there. This page is just going to be some practical application from what I've basically spoke about or what I've told you about. So if we're weakest in the shortened position, If we, let's say, do exercises that are really heavy in that position, then we're going to be undertraining the rest of the rep. For example, take a dumbbell lateral raise. If we do a dumbbell lateral raise, it's really hard at the top, really easy at the bottom. At the top is its shortened position, so that exercise is really hard at the top where we're weaker, which doesn't make much sense to overload there, to make it harder there. So we arguably want to make exercises hard in its middle and lengthened position of a muscle length, so it matches our capabilities. For example, a good alternative would be like a cable lateral raise. And like I said with the dumbbell bench press, it's heavy at the bottom, light at the top when our joints are stacked. So you could say that makes a good exercise for our chest. Some studies show we build muscle best in the middle and lengthened range, so it makes sense to overload that position to make sure that's when the weight's heavy and to spend most of our time, most of our exercises in that position. So just thinking about it logically, see if I told you what's going to be more effective, doing every single exercise at the top half of the rep or the bottom. Take a squat for example. What do you think is going to be more beneficial, doing a squat or let's say a hack squat, a Smith machine squat, only staying in that bottom half or only staying in that top half? What do you think is going to be harder? You'll feel best in your muscle, your muscle will feel battered after. Probably that bottom half. So what I'm basically trying to do is spark in your brain what could be classed as a good exercise depending on when it's hard, from experience performing them. So obviously I've not went over how to know if an exercise is hard or easy in each portion of the rep, but I've told you where your muscles are stronger and weaker, so it should maybe spark your brain. And however, like I said, this doesn't involve where the exercise or machine is difficult due to gravity. I'm just talking about our muscles' capabilities for now. Next, we will touch on resistance profiles, which is where an exercise is hard and easiest, not including your muscles, because we've touched on the strength profiles, basically the strength of our muscle, but there's two parts of the equation. We've covered our strength, we need to cover where the exercise is hard and easiest due to gravity, etc. So, hope this made sense. Any questions off the back of it, please let me know. It is quite a complex topic to discuss, so I appreciate you might not take it in straight away, so feel free to watch the video once or twice so you get all the information in.